Tim, so stoked to have you here on the Mark Divine Show. I appreciate you joining me today. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. It's an honor and a privilege to be on your show. Can't wait to unpack this conversation with you.
Yeah. Well, before we unpack, we never really packed it up, so we don't have to unpack much. We're going to start with the clothes laying out all over the place. I'm
For
stoked to
sure.
talk to you. You've done some interesting things in your life, and you've had some challenges to overcome. I love that you're a pastor. I really respect people who follow that calling.
Mhm.
Um, and I think a lot of our listeners are really jonesing for kind of like sanity in this world of insanity. So I'm really excited to talk to you. People love conversations like this where, we can just kind of like help them understand that everything's okay, right? Then they don't have to
Yeah.
fear so much. But before we get into kind of like, your philosophy of 1440 and your new book, The Art of Overcoming, help us understand like who is Tim Timberlake? Where do you come from? What were your childhood influences? How were you conditioned to see the world as a young man, and what changed it, right, to lead you where you are today?
Yeah. So I grew up in the Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina area.
Yeah.
And I grew up in a household where my family was really in and around ministry all of my life.
Okay.
My grandfather was a sharecropper, which pretty much means he was a glorified slave. He and his kids, 8 kids, and my grandmother, they stayed in a one-room, 10-roof house for a good portion of his life, and he got paid $30 a month. And
Wow.
my grandmother ended up getting sick and had to be rushed to the hospital. The doctors told my grandfather that they would have to remove one whole lung and half of the remaining lung.
Oh my.
And there was little chance of survival after they did the surgery. And so they went through the surgery and they took one complete lung. They removed half of her remaining lung. She was on life support, and they told my grandfather that he should get his children, and they should kind of get their last remarks and condolences in before they pull her off of life support. And my grandfather looked at the doctors and he said, "If you'll give me 10 minutes, I'll be able to let you guys pull her off of life support." And he goes to the lobby of the hotel. He gets down on his knees and he tells God, "God, if you save my life, me and all of my family will serve you for the rest of our days."
Wow.
And he gets back up. He goes into the hospital room and he gives the doctors the okay to remove her from life support. They told my grandfather that she would be dead by the morning. The morning comes, she's still alive. A week passes, she's still alive. And 2 weeks later, she was out of the hospital. My grandmother lived until she was 93 years old. And
Wow.
my my
That's a cool story.
grandfather followed through on his promise. Yeah, he followed through on his promise to God that he would serve him. And while he was sharecropping, working tobacco fields and farming the land for the sharecrop owner, he also started a church. And this
Okay.
church grew from just his family to hundreds of people. And
Wow.
it finally got to the place where he could no longer sharecrop. And out of that came my father. And my father had a heart to serve God and pastor. And my dad pastored a church that he started in Creedmoor, North Carolina. It grew from 9 people till about 12,000 people in a town
Wow.
of 1,200 people. And
Wait.
I
Give me
could not
that.
get a
12,000 in a town of
yeah.
1,200?
Yeah, so
How does that happen?
right now it's one of 14 of my locations that I pastor now, but people would drive from all over the state and out of state to come
Wow.
to church there. And
Is your father still
I couldn't
alive,
get
still
away
doing
from
it?
the problem.
Your father's still
No,
alive
my
and doing it?
dad died in 2000.
Oh,
He,
bless
he
him.
died in 2002, which is the reason I'm in ministry and I pastor. I had no desire to be in church. I had no desire to be in ministry.
Right.
As a matter of fact, in 1997, when my dad got terminally ill with cancer, I ran from God. And my perspective of God at that time was, if this is the way that God treats his man, I don't want to serve a God like that. And my faith was not built off of what I had learned about God. It was built off of the backs of my parents and other people. And it wasn't until I had that amount of pain to hit my life when I lost my father, that I really understood who God was to me. And
Right.
I think for a lot of our listeners, that may be something that we wrestle with. It's not a matter of if God exists or if God is even good. It's if he is good to me. Does he exist in the areas that I need him in? And I had a very real encounter with God that propelled me and kind of pushed me into a relationship with Jesus. And as a result, uh, teaching and preaching and pastoring and connecting other people to the hope in Jesus as well. And that's kind of how I got my foundation. And it's been 19 years, man, as serving as a pastor and leading a church and an incredible movement of people.
Did you so is it like the I'm just gonna throw this out here and I hope I'm not, stepping on anything, but Southern Baptist, or
Oh,
what's the you know, the blankety blank of what it is, the church that you're part of? What is it? What's
yeah.
the
So the name of the church is called Celebration Church, and
celebration?
it's a non-denominational church. Yeah,
Okay.
non-denominational church. One church with 14 locations.
Okay. So you're not
In
affiliated with any like I grew up as an Episcopalian, or it's nothing like that. Okay. So
Yeah,
is
so
it would
not
you
affiliated
consider
with
it
any.
part of the born again, or what is it? Help me understand the relationship to other
Yeah,
churches.
I would consider it a part of a Bible teaching charismatic movement church.
Bible. Okay,
And
I get
so
that.
the best, yeah.
So
So
you do you have a
the
what kind
best
of view of the Bible do you have? Is it a metaphorical
the
view or a
Bible.
strict interpretationist view, or what?
No, it is. I have a very black and white view of the Bible. I believe
Right.
that the Bible is true. I
Yeah.
believe that what Jesus states in the Bible is both applicable and life changing and transformational for those that lean into it. But I don't push what I believe on other
Right.
people. And
I like
so
that.
me and my wife, we have this motto: you don't have to believe what we believe to belong. I believe that the love of Jesus is so contagious that eventually you
You'll
will
find
ask me what I believe. And
it. I
until
love
then,
that.
uh,
No, I like that
and
because
until then,
yeah. I'm sorry.
we have this
Yeah,
dialogue, this conversation, until you get to that place where you ask questions.
I love that because I agree with that in principle. And I say it this way that, when it comes to spirituality, everyone is a study of n equals one. You have to have a
Mhm.
direct experience of it, or else it's just a philosophy or a theology. And so that's what
That's
you're
right.
referring to. Have a direct experience, whether that's a
That's
direct
right.
experience with the love of Jesus or direct experience with God consciousness itself or the Holy Ghost, or whatever, however you want to articulate. There's many different words from many different, perspectives or theologies, all pointing toward the same thing. If you really get, if you get to that intimate connection, right, then you find out, you can see
Yes,
how
sir.
all these different perspectives are pointing toward the same thing, even though they might fight about it in the schoolhouses, right? So you didn't have to do any like formal training, did you? Like get your master's in theology or anything like that?
I didn't get my master's. I did go to Bible college, and so
Okay.
I played basketball all throughout high school. Was one of the best basketball players in North Carolina all 4 years
What?
of high school, and
Could you have
had
gone
dreams.
pro?
Yeah, had dreams. No, too small back then. Back then, the
Okay.
smallest guy in the NBA that played my size was Allen Iverson, and
Yeah.
Allen Iverson was just in a league of his own. But guys my size didn't make it back then. Now I look in the NBA and I'm like, man, I could have made it if I had played now.
Right.
But I was just too small for my position, and but still good. And so I had aspirations to go overseas and play, and could have done really really well. But God caught me in the ministry before then, and now I have an opportunity to walk with NBA players and NFL players, and really help them full spectrum from sports performance to spiritual and character development. And so
Right.
it's been really rewarding to see how God has taken something that I had as a passion in my past and utilizes its purpose now for my present and for my future.
Oh, that's cool. What has been the biggest challenge in your life where, you literally were hitting a wall and you didn't know what was next?
Well, I can say the biggest challenge in my life has always been me. I think that if we're not careful, our insecurities scream louder than our confidences. And I believe our insecurities can lead, dictate, and try to determine what we do. And
Hmm.
so we have to learn how to not just navigate, but really wrestle with our insecurities, our anxieties, our worries, our fears, because those things can turn into walls that hinder us from advancing in this life. And so for me, one of the biggest things that I had struggled with was doubt. Am
Hmm.
I able, am I capable of doing these things that are in front of me? And am I capable of continuing to be great or good at them? And I believe for all of us listening and leaning into this moment, that's something that we all have to wrestle with. And if we can conquer that doubt every single day, because every single day it will reappear in a different form or fashion, then I believe we take steps of health and wholeness on this journey of life to success. And so I
Right.
have this saying, Mark, and it
Yeah.
says, we have to schedule our victories because our defeats and our doubts will schedule themselves.
That's
And
so
if we
true.
can schedule the victories of our day, if we can schedule the triumphs of our day, if we can even schedule the celebrations of our day, it gives us enough energy to get through the moments of doubt and in the moments of insecurity that we'll all be faced with.
Wow, I love that. And I love, again, I'm listening to your words and I'm seeing so many similarities. Even though though I've read the Bible and I believe in God and Christianity, I grew up as a Christian. I have a very different
Mhm,
perspective based upon my 35 years of meditation experience. So that has brought me
mhm.
different contexts and relationships. But anyways,
Yeah.
when it comes to training, I have two similar sayings or admonishments. One is to bring the challenge to yourself before the universe does. So we do that by going
Yeah.
out and challenging ourselves in a big way to grow, and we do that
Mhm.
physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And I even have a program that you would actually love. It's called Kokoro Camp. Kokoro means merging your heart and mind into your actions. And it's 50 hours of nonstop physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual team training. No sleep, based
Uh,
upon the Navy SEALs
yeah.
hell week. So if you want that,
Yeah.
if you want a piece of that, just let me know. And then I
For
also
sure.
say is win in your mind before you step foot into the battlefield every day. And that's similar
Mm,
to your saying of, schedule the wins. So in the morning, take the
yeah.
time through contemplation, through prayer, through meditation, through reading the Bible or spiritual works, and get your mind clear of what the day is going to look like and how it's going to go. And you and I know, and people who are listening who do this know, it's a game changer. And days that you miss this because you got to get up too early for the flight, or maybe you didn't get a good night's sleep, then suddenly God has a way of reminding you how important that work is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. Life has a way of reminding us that we have a desperate need and this gravitational pull to reset, rest, slow down pace, and
Hmm.
focus our life on what really matters most.
Yeah,
It's almost um, you know, life has a way of forcing us to do those things if we don't schedule them.
that's
And
right.
I just encourage our listeners schedule them so that life doesn't have to.
Yeah, that's awesome. What are some of the transformations that you have seen amongst, your followers or your parishioners, right? People who come in stuck in a rut, emotionally bankrupt, maybe even suicidal, and what is it that transforms them? I mean, it's easy to just say, oh, they found God, but like from your perspective and your knowledge as both a coach and someone who's been involved in
Mhm.
emotional development and now obviously for a long time a religious kind of orientation and service, like what are some of the different ways that people are transformed through your work and your words and just the words of Jesus or God or however we want to contextualize it?
Yeah, and so I coach people that both believe what I believe and don't believe what I believe. I coach people that don't believe in God at all. And the one thing that I found consistent throughout all humanity, everyone has a hope in something. And so it's a hope for a better tomorrow. It's a hope for a better future. Some may have a hope in God, but we all have a hope and an expectation in something. And so the thing that I try to connect people with that are in those dire and crisis situations is connect them to the silver lining of hope. I consider myself to be a hope architect, and that is
Mm-hmm.
helping other people discover, find, and build hope in their life. And so when we look at the framework of life, all of us have some type of hope we can cling on to, we can hold on to, we can kind of base the foundation of our life on and off of. And if I can point people back to that place, it takes their focus and really their worries off of the problems and really puts it on the ability to see opportunity in them. And so we can't control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond to what happens to us.
Right.
And if we respond the right way, it gives us an opportunity to learn in the areas that we may experience pain, that we may experience trauma, that we may experience PTSD in, that we may experience any type of life's crisis in. If we can learn from those things, then we get stronger from those things. It's when we don't learn from those things that that pain tends to revisit us in other
Yeah.
areas of our life over and over again. And so if I can get people, no matter what their walk of life is, no matter what their background is, to look at these moments as an opportunity to learn and find the silver lining in it, then we grow from it. And it doesn't have to revisit us in the days to come.
Yeah. What do you believe an individual's purpose is in life? Is there an overarching purpose from your perspective, like to evolve and grow the spirit? Or is it more of an individuated, hey, my karma said I needed to come in and learn this lesson? Or is it both? I know,
Yeah, I think
Christianity doesn't believe
it's
in karma, but, there's a,
for sure. I believe it's kind of a combination of both. I believe our purpose is to add value to the lives of other people.
nice.
And this is what I truly believe. I believe we'll be known for one of two things at the end of our lives. And that's this: the problems that we solve or the problems that we create.
Hmm.
And so when we help people solve problems, it defines the purpose of our life. We're not here to merely exist within our own ability and our own power, our own efforts. We are here to help other people along the way. And in doing so, we provide opportunities to add value to people's lives. And so when
Yes.
you really think about money and when you really think about the currency and money is the reward for a problem solved. That's what it is. And when we can help people solve problems, when we can help add value to people's lives, other things come with that. You know, there's fulfillment that comes with that. There's opportunities to help other people that come with that. And in the grand scheme of things, that's what I believe our purpose is attached to. Helping other people advance, helping other people get the gold and the greatness out of them, and any way and any time I can do that, it helps me to fulfill the purpose that I believe God has given me.
Yes. I love that. And one of the things that I've really learned and maybe came to a little late in my life, I wish I had come to it earlier, is that one of the best ways to help others is through forgiveness, right? Because if you're trying to
Mhm.
help others and you haven't opened your heart into a place of acceptance and non-judgmentalism and just absolute utter forgiveness, which was really the root of Jesus's teachings, then you may be more,
Yeah,
it may be just a transactional thing, and you're still leaving a carbon copy of kind of that judgment upon the world, or, and on yourself. Because ultimately, every action you take, you leave a carbon copy on yourself, which is why supporting and helping others is so powerful. But if you got to do it with a good heart, right, with forgiveness,
absolutely. And forgiveness, very little times is about the other person.
right?
It
That's right.
always has to do with getting poison out of my heart,
That's
and
right.
getting the bitterness, the resentment out of my heart. And so when I forgive someone, it's not necessarily for them, it's me acknowledging that that person no longer has power over my decisions.
Right.
I mean, think about this for a moment. How much power do we give another individual when they hold our thoughts captive, when they hold our life
Mm-hmm.
prisoners, when they hold our time encapsulated by the idea of them? And instead of giving them that much power, forgive them from it. And you may have to forgive them from it many, many times, but don't give them the power to control how you feel. You
Right.
control how you feel, and you can control the decisions that you make from that feeling. So forgive them, move beyond it. Doesn't mean that you will forget, but it means that they no longer hold you hostage to what they did or what they did not do.
That's all right. 100% truth there. Um, and this gets more challenging, the more the atrocity, perpetuated on an individual or
Mhm.
even a collective. Like let's go to the slavery issue. Your grandfather was a sharecropper, but his grandfather was a slave, right? And
Yeah.
and so you have, and I'm not in your shoes, obviously. I don't look like you, do I? But I can see, my heart is open enough to see how painful that
Yeah.
must have been, and how hard it would be collectively to forgive that. And so you're seeing that played out in some of the cultural things that are happening in critical race theory, which is now like anger projected at the perpetrators, which is keeping that stain collectively on the heart of those. So like, I don't know, just for people listening to this, like forgiveness, even, and I think about the Jews. I was at the Holocaust Museum in New York, and oh my God, the evil, the horror, like, but you have to forgive. And, I know someone listening who went through that
Yeah.
is saying, but you don't understand, Mark. You're right. I don't, but I do understand, just like
Mhm.
you do, Tim, that ultimately it's about you, your world. And if you want your world to evolve, if you want your world to be one of peace, you have to forgive. That's the ultimate
That's it.
gift to
And
yourself. Yeah. And humanity.
unforgiveness, yeah, unforgiveness, it's like drinking poison and thinking the other person will die.
Oh my God,
It
that's
it
awesome.
contaminates
Right.
it contaminates our soul. It puts us in a place where we are now hostage to something. And here's the crazy part about it. The person that we are harboring unforgiveness towards most of the time aren't even thinking about what they did to us.
Yeah, they may not
And
remember it.
so
They're on
we are
another.
now held
Yeah.
they on to the next thing. And so we have to get beyond uh, this unforgiveness, forgive so that we can start, initiate, activate the healing process and move beyond the season that we're in, so that we are not prisoners to something that someone else did to us. When we have the power to decide to unlock that gate, unlock those chains, and move and operate in forgiveness
Mm.
for our lives.
So if someone's got a hardened heart because they were abused, let's say, those are really nasty stuff, sexually abused as a child or raped or something, how do you help them
Mhm.
how do you help them move toward forgiveness? Because it's not easy,
One of the
right?
first things that I yeah, one of the first things that I ask trauma victims that have been through molestation, rape, sexual assault, um, is this: the unforgiveness that you have. How has it advanced you?
Yeah.
How has it pushed you forward? And the answer comes back to the same thing. It hasn't. It only makes us sicker.
Hmm.
And something that was meant to hurt us one time can hurt us a lifetime if we continue to operate in unforgiveness. And I'm not saying this because forgiveness is easy.
Yeah.
I'm saying that you have to do the hard and difficult work of forgiveness so that your life can start healing and your life can start growing and your life can start moving in the direction of joy and peace. And every day you have to make up in your mind to forgive the person that caused you so much pain. But I just encourage our listeners, don't give those people more power over you to dictate and determine or delay the greatness and the goal that is in you because of unforgiveness. And so I just encourage our listeners right now, for those that are listening that have been through crisis, that have been through trauma, that have been through pain, to release those people that have hurt you so that you don't allow them to become rulers over you and determine what you do and how you do it.
Right. That's super powerful. And you know what? The best growth comes from the hardest challenges, or the most growth.
Absolutely.
And so you can't shy from hard.
Absolutely.
You can't shy from the hard stuff. In fact,
You,
once you go into the belly of the
we,
beast the first time, then it gets easier and easier. Yeah.
that's right. Oftentimes, we want to run from the very place that we can experience our greatest fulfillment.
Right.
You know, you
Right.
think about the difficulties of serving, you think about the difficulties of the assignments and the different tasks that you had to carry out on the other end of those things was some of the greatest fulfillment. Were you tired? Absolutely. Was your body in pain? Absolutely. But there's fulfillment that comes from having put in the work, having gone through the pain, having endured those things that you would not have learned if you had not gone through them in the first place. It's just like lifting weights. We all have in our mind the picture of what we want to be and how we want our body to look. But it's not until we get under the weight of resistance that we give our bodies an opportunity to develop and form and grow into who we have seen our body developing and growing into. It doesn't come without pain, though. It doesn't come without tension. It doesn't come without friction. All of those things produce in our physical bodies the results that we want to see. It's no different in life. There's no results without the friction, without the tension, without the pain that we have to endure to get out of this life what we know we're capable of getting out of it.
Yeah. I love it. Now I'm curious. We don't have to go down this rabbit hole too far, but I'll frame it up like this: we all experienced a collective trauma in the last couple of years. We thought that
Mhm.
trauma was COVID-19, but as we got in, and the trauma also became the trauma of a one-sided minded kind of technocratic totalitarian response that was global. But then there were some areas like Florida that said no. You've got a large community of people who are supporting each other and working toward health and trying to like find heaven on earth in your own community in spite of all that crap that's going on out there, right? Because that's kind of what I teach, and I can see that like we have all these pockets of very healthy people who are communicating together, supporting each other, and seeing that real health is not that. It's not believing the mainstream
Yeah.
dialogue on food. It's not believing the mainstream dialogue on medicine, which is propped up by the sickness industry. It's not buying into the war, violence, industrial complex, which is just keeping us in a perpetual state of debt and war. So my question to you is like, what? And you live in Florida. Like, what's the current state of the mind and communication about amongst your tribes about the current state of affairs in this country and culture and the divisive politics? I know that's a broad based thing, but just whatever comes to your mind.
For sure. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is making sure to keep people focused, that our hope won't be found in politics. Our
Yeah.
hope won't be found in science. Our
No.
hope won't be found in those things. And so our core belief has to be deeper than what we can find in other people.
Right.
And what we
Or in
encourage people,
government.
no matter yeah, that's right. No matter what side of the aisle that people sit on, because we have people that watch us and we have people that listen that vote all different types of ways. But this is what we have to agree on. Your differences should not be a divisive tool that brings further separation.
Hmm.
It should be something that we can talk about and agree to disagree on.
Right.
It
Agree.
has to be that your differences are talked through and we come to some understanding and agreement. And I believe in the last season that was removed from humanity. And it was almost, if a person believes differently than what I believe, or if a person views something differently than what I view it, then they're cut off, they're canceled. That these things they're ostracized. And I believe that we have to understand that in order for us to advance as humanity, society, and as a culture, to understand the differences that people have, whether we agree with them or not. And that's what I've tried to communicate to our people so that we can continue to spread hope instead of hate, that we can continue to spread love instead of divisiveness. And, when we do those things, it helps us to not see just the differences in people, but see the humanity in people.
Yeah.
And we have more in common than we do uncommon. And when we look at
Absolutely.
the humanity in people, and when we look at what brings us together, there's a couple of things I believe that brings us together, Mark. The first one is food. All of us can agree that we need food. We desperately need food. The
And we
second
need
thing is music.
healthy,
No matter what language
sustainable
you speak,
food. Right.
that's right. We need sustainable food. The second thing that you look at is music. No matter what language, no matter what background, no matter what demographic people come from, we all have this mutual agreement around music. The second one, the third one is sports. When
Hmm.
you look at the different world sporting events, such as the World Cup or such as the Olympics, it is the world gathering together to celebrate a sporting event. But then the fourth one is what I believe connects us like nothing else, and that's pain. When
Hmm.
we look at the pain of humanity, when we look at the pain of society, when we look at the pain of what's going on in our world right now, that should unite us like never before to try and figure out how can we help other people get out of the pain that they may be enduring right now, just as someone else along the way has tried to help us.
Absolutely. I love those four things. And I also, if I were just to say to any listener that the people to trust are people who talk or who promote that philosophy, some version of what you're talking about, where the sameness is absolutely set in stone and the differences are applauded and embraced and enjoyed through the arts and sports and through you know literature and scholarly work, right, instead of like pointing out the differences and creating divisiveness. So any movement toward healing on this planet has to come from that perspective, where we're all the same. Humans are all the same. We're all created the same in the eyes of God, however you define that. And the diversity is a blessing, because then we get to enjoy the individual nature of every human being living out this godly existence. So any type of platform or institution or government body that doesn't lead with that is not truth, right? That is falsehood. And
Mhm.
so if you think that there's going to be some sort of one way, one world governments that is a technocratic totalitarian system that puts people into re-education camps or denounces and deplatforms you if you don't agree to them because you're different, that is seriously dangerous, slippery slope and not truth. That's
Yeah,
falsehood. I just have to say that because
absolutely.
everyone has to see that truth leads with an open heart and a hand, not a
Mhm.
gun and a censorship.
Absolutely.
So, what's
Absolutely.
your 1440 philosophy? Does that have to do with the number of minutes in the day and to count
It
carefully?
does.
Awesome. Yeah.
It does. There are 1,440 minutes in a day. And I believe that the way we steward those minutes, and I say steward because I believe it's really hard to manage what you can't control. So we
Right.
can't tell time to stop. We can't tell it to slow down. We can't tell it to speed up. We can't rewind it. But what we can do is steward it very well. And how
Mm,
we steward those 1,440 minutes determine the moments that we create from them. And those moments are what we will remember for the rest of our lives. And so the book, The Power of 1440, it's not a time management book. It is a stewardship book on making meaningful moments with the life that you have, because in those moments, those things will stick to you like meat on bones for the rest of your life.
so true. And also, this ties to your second book, your new book, The Art of Overcoming, because in order to make the best
Yeah,
opportunity to steward those moments, you got to overcome the fear and the trauma and the big things that are holding you back. Otherwise, you're captive to them, right?
that's right. You have to. I believe that there is an art to overcome. I believe that when you hear that word, it sounds a lot more glamorous than what it is, but sometimes overcoming is waking up the next day, putting your feet on the ground and saying, I survived.
Hmm.
And a lot of times we demise or diminish the little victories that we get throughout each and every day. We have a tendency to blow past them, but this book teaches us how to really honor those victories and celebrate those victories, as well as give honor to the things that we had an opportunity to live with and no longer live within our lives. And so every season presents wins. Every season in our life produces opportunities for us to learn. But as long as we're learning, we're not losing. And the art of overcoming teaches us just that, how we can let things rest in peace without losing our peace, and understanding that although something is ending, it is not the end. And my prayer is that those that read these books are infused with hope and a knowing that everything is going to be okay.
I love that. You said something there. As long as you're learning, you're not losing, or something like that. What was that
That's right.
comment?
That's
Something
right.
like that.
Every season we win, and every season we learn. But as long as you learn, you don't lose,
I
because
love
you
it.
learned something from it. And in that moment, it may feel like a loss, but it's not a loss. It's a learning opportunity for you not to make the same mistakes over and over again.
Right.
I believe it was Edison who said, "I have not failed at discovering electricity.
Yeah.
I've just determined
Yeah.
10,500 ways that electricity cannot be
Yeah.
done."
I love
And I
that.
believe that's something to be said for all of us when we're on this journey of life.
Right. In the SEALs, when in training new SEALs, we say there's no such thing as failure. There's just the failure to learn. So every obstacle you hit,
Mm,
everything that goes wrong, it's not a failure. It's just another way of figuring out how not to do it. And so use that to learn how to do it
yeah,
differently. That's such a
I
great
love that.
motivation. So from a practical sense, we got to kind of wind down here in a few minutes. But from a practical sense, do you have any like top recommendations to move toward overcoming if people feel stuck or not sure where to go or how to approach it?
Yeah, so three things that I encourage our listeners to do. The first one is this: acknowledge that you need assistance in overcoming.
Mm-hmm.
So often, particularly alphas, we have this mentality that we can do everything in our own power. We don't need help. We resist help. But the reality is that we may run faster alone, but we will run longer alongside of someone else. And so talk to someone, get information, get resources, get poured into by someone that sees differently than you do. Because all of us has blind spots. And here's the danger with blind spots: blind spots let you look, but they don't allow you to see. And if you don't see the areas in your life that need assistance and need help and need to be strengthened, then you will fall and get weaker in those areas. The second thing I encourage our listeners to do is get plugged into community, some type of life giving community that feeds you and fuels you and gives you an opportunity to both get poured into and to pour into others. And then the third thing is give yourself the same amount of grace that you would give other people if you were helping them go through a crisis. And this is
Mm-hmm.
important because we typically are so hard on ourselves that we forget that we are both a masterpiece and a work in progress.
Yes.
And so those are the three things that I would encourage our listeners to do.
I love that. And it's very true also that some people find it easier to put their attention in helping someone else out far more than they'll give that kind of attention to themselves, their own needs, and to ask for help. Because you're right, we're not trained to ask for help, especially guys. That's part of our cultural
That's right.
conditioning, and it's flat out
That's
wrong.
right.
This is one of our big drivers for that program in SEALFIT I told you about, is really to recognize that anything worthy in life, you just can't do it alone. It's a fantasy to think that you can do it alone. You can try, but either you will not see the success, or you won't find the joy of sharing that victory with a team. So
That's right. It's so true.
well, you're congratulations on the book. You're on a book tour. Sounds like it's great to get out and see people in person. I got to take that into heart. My next book is coming out next year. It's called Uncommon. And I'm already in my head. I was already thinking, oh yeah, I'll probably get ready for the podcast tour and I'll be standing in my office again for hours and hours and hours. I'm like, wait a minute, I need to get out on the road and talk to people. I think that's a great idea.
Get out on the road. That's right.
That's
It
awesome.
is, man. Get
Where
out
are some
on
of the
the
places
road,
you're going to
talk to
be?
people face to face.
Yeah.
I just left California last week. I've been in all over Florida, North Carolina, Nashville, Tennessee, Lynchburg, Virginia. And so I've kind of been all over the map.
Are you going to like
will continue and
are you going to other parishes, or are you going to like book signings, or how does that look for you?
A hodgepodge of everything. So from TV shows to other churches to other executive meetings to other opportunities to talk in theaters. Last week I was just at the Saban Theater in Beverly Hills. And so it just depends on the city and it depends on the relationships that are there. But it's been
That's
fun to
cool.
get back on the road and to travel with it. So I'll be in Minneapolis next week with it.
Do you have a like that tour schedule posted on your website or anything if somebody wanted to connect with you or meet you?
Yeah, so on timtimberlake.tv, you'll find everything from social media to the various books that I have out and where I'll be. And that's timtimberlake.tv.
Timtimberlake.tv. And that's the primary place you would like people to go to connect with you?
Absolutely.
Okay. And the book Harper's coming out. Of course, that'll be available everywhere. Do you have any kind of a pre-order deal with that?
The book is out now. The Art of Overcoming.
Okay.
It came out May 16th. Yeah, doing very, very well. And you can go pick that book up wherever books are sold, or one consolidated site, theartofovercomingbook.com. It has all the retailers where you can order the book online. And I appreciate all the love and support. I believe the book is going to add value to your life.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. Tim, well, you've added value to mine and our listeners. It's been such a great conversation. You got a great heart. Really appreciate you for the work you're doing. And thank you for coming on the Mark Divine Show. I really appreciate it, brother.